and we take a look at what they've done in the offseason at this point, as far as the big news, obviously, was moving out of the top spot. It was a really good deal, I think, for both teams. Chicago made out. Not only do they get the draft capital, but they end up getting a much-needed weapon, DJ Moore, for their young quarterback. So that's real important. They also added Tanyan at tight end. Now, I will have to say, though, the running back situation, I did not like the way they handled it. I don't know what went on behind the scenes last year. We talked about it quite a bit, and they actually let him go. I don't understand how they couldn't have traded David Montgomery in the offseason. I mean, at the trade deadline. How in the world did they not do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible they dropped the ball, right? Maybe they were asking for too much and teams just shut the door on them and then never open the doors back up. There's definitely a story there that is not public yet.
Yeah.
But those things usually have a way of making their way out at some point. But, I think no matter what, the backfield is eventually going to belong to Khalil Herbert. I know they had Dante Foreman, who is, actually an ascending player as his career goes on. But I believe that had more to do with opportunity and the situation he's in. I think if Chicago's going to take a leap forward because of backfield production, it's going to be more about Herbert than Foreman regardless. But I agree with you that they dropped the ball last year, and my guess is they were asking for too much and the team shut the door on them.
Well, speaking of skill positions, as we take a look at the Bears, you know how much I love Herbert, and I thought and I know our lads, and I deservedly so, based on last year, because Foreman was a number one, Herbert was a number two, but it's not going to be long before Khalil Herbert becomes the number one running back on the depth chart, because he's their future. It's not Dante Foreman.
I agree.
And he's just one of those guys too that you love to have, because he look at it. What did he have? Like a 6-yard average last year. 5.7.
He was up there.
That's excellent.
Inside, outside, great blocker, great teammate. Checks all the boxes.
Yep. All right. So overall, though, we know Fields is going to be there. So you've got your quarterback. You even have now, I guess, your backup quarterback, bringing in P.J. Walker. You're fine with that. I mean, you're not going to do nothing next year anyway if Fields goes down. And then at the receiver position, Kmet, he showed some signs, and it's nice that they brought in Tanyan. Don't have to worry about tight end. So wide receiver, the DJ Moore deal, I think, puts him in a position where they also don't have to worry too much about that spot either, because you expect a jump in production, your hope, with Velus Jones Jr., and you throw in the deal last year for Claypool, so I think they're fine there. So without a doubt, on offense, it's about the offensive line and what they need to do to improve that area. And when you take a look overall at the biggest issues along the offensive line, right now at center, that is a big hole. Patrick is considered, as far as the depth chart is concerned, their number one center. He's a below-average guy to begin with. He's injury-prone. And by the way, they had 8 different line combinations due to injuries last year, and there was only one 17-game starter, and it happened to be a guy that nobody expected to have that kind of season, was Braxton Jones, who had what a find. I mean, that was an awesome find in the 5th round. So they actually are pretty set at tackle, hopefully, with Jenkins and Jones. They added Nate Davis, but that's just a kind of holdover kind of piece. So they got to take care, no question, in my mind. I think you would agree with me, on offense, it has to be the interior of the offensive line.
Yeah, and I do think one of the answers is currently on the roster. All right, Tevin Jenkins, he's only been in the league for 2 years. Year one, they had him play left tackle, and it was a complete and utter disaster. Yes. They didn't even give him another shot there. They moved him inside, but he was good inside last year.
Okay.
And if you want to move a couple of these pieces around, Cody Whitehair has experience. He came into the league. His first 5 years were at center. Could you put Jenkins back at guard? You'd have to move him again. You'd be putting him on the left side, because I think Nate Davis is entrenched as the right guard. So I like that interior of Jenkins at left guard, Whitehair at center, Davis at right guard, and then you go into the draft, and where they're sitting right now, that might have been their plan, trading down, is you grab your right tackle with that first pick and with your first round pick.
Yeah, who do they have? What's the Bears draft situation right now? Early.
I believe they're sitting at 9. Let me confirm that.
Let's get that.
I believe it's 9 overall.
Because now they have what, 2 first-round picks, or do they get one of the
Uh,
picks next year?
I think it's the next year. I think they have 1 first-round pick in this draft. I'm gonna confirm that right
And
now.
in the meanwhile, while you're doing that, just to keep in mind too, Jenkins did have a neck injury late last season. So anytime you're dealing with the neck, that is taken extra seriously. And
Yeah.
so another reason why they have to have a backup plan,
Hmm.
and that it, because and your idea, whether see your idea puts into mix that there is some flexibility. There's some, hey,
Right.
they could do this, they could do that. So that I think is also a good thing. So when they go into the draft, they don't have to be pigeonholed. They might say, hey, you know what, I really like this guard, or I really like this tackle over the guard or over the tackle, and then that could be the decision that they the reason they go in that direction. So what's their draft status?
So they're picking at number 9, and then they don't pick again until the 53rd pick because they
Really?
don't have their second rounder.
Okay.
Pittsburgh
Well, that's why they got
Pittsburgh has
DJ
it.
Moore, I guess. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean they lost pick number 32, the first pick of the second round in that Chase Claypool trade.
Okay.
So they have 2 picks in the top 53. I mean, I could see them moving down even again, but in my opinion, the decision to move out of 1 was future assets, but also looking at this defensive side of the ball. Okay, we haven't gotten there yet, but you basically had your choice of Jalen Carter or Will Anderson if you were going to stay at number 1.
Yes.
And obviously that would have been the pick, one of those 2
Sure.
guys. You move down to 9, you're no longer in striking distance of those 2. And you can see by some of the personnel moves they made in free agency, not big time players along the defensive line, but guys that can come in and play. Rasheem Green, DeMarcus Walker,
Billings.
Andrew Billings. All these guys were, and then they added 2 linebackers. Like, they solidified the front at least for this upcoming season. So I believe the move down from 1 said, hey, we're going to go in and we might get the first tackle off the board. It's even possible that we'll get the first or second corner off the board too. I do think corner is the number 1 need on this team. If you said you have 8 guys graded equally at number 9 overall, I think that's where they lean. They were 32nd, dead last year in yards per attempt allowed. In that secondary, I mean, you look at the names up there, there's nothing that gets you excited at corner. I think they're strong inside at safety with Brisker and Eddie Jackson, but
Yes.
they need a big time guy on the outside.
Yep.
And a lot of this, how they handle the offensive line is what do they view Tevin Jenkins as? Are they comfortable moving Cody Whitehair to center? But
hey, you know what? They could take care of that with drafting the kid from Northwestern.
Yeah, Skoronski. Yeah, I mean
that gives them more flexibility.
I mean, then now you just go into camp saying, "Hey, we don't know exactly how we're going to put this chess piece together, but we have the players. We just have to figure out where they go." So, will he be there? I'm not sure. I think Broderick Jones this is a good spot for him. The tackle from Georgia, Broderick Jones, the tackle from Georgia.
Really, you think he's going to go in that area? Okay.
I think he's going to go top 15.
Okay.
Skoronski is going to be the first lineman off the board, and I think he's going to be number 2.
What about the kid from Florida?
Oh, Torrance? Yeah, I mean, Osiris Torrance. I have him going to Philly, which is like a pick or 2 after that.
So he's also going to be a top 15 guy?
I think he's going to be a top 15 guy. Basically, a lot of the teams that are meeting with him too and bringing him in for visits, they're all kind of like in that Washington and Green Bay, the mid-teens.
Okay,
he's going to be a top 15 pick.
All right. So, but the other thing too is they desperately need edge rush help.
Yes.
So here's the question, because we know that there's a big gap, and I think this is why. I think the Bears, I think you even mentioned it, I think the Bears might be in a better spot, and any team that is looking for a cornerback or an edge rusher and they have a high enough draft pick might be better off being the trade partner. Let me move down, because once you get by that 1 or maybe even 2, to tell you the truth, the more I hear you and the more we look at this, I'm starting to think there's a gap now after Gonzalez, to tell you the truth.
There is.
And I just wouldn't because there's so many other corners that are sitting there that can go between like 20 and 40. Well, why would I reach? Why don't I just move back if I can? And same thing at edge rusher. Once you get past Anderson, there's no like immediate number 2. You can,
Big
I know
drop
I've
off.
heard all the, oh, this guy, and how about that guy? Really? In the top 10? No, I mean, why reach for a guy like that? And I'm talking
Yep.
about the kid from Texas Tech or the kid from Iowa. No, I mean, I'm not picking a guy like that in the top 10, not me personally. So, yeah, maybe the Bears would be in that situation. They trade back. But so the question I guess I'm going to ask you then is if they don't trade back, who are they looking at either cornerback or edge rusher with their first pick?
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to ignore the offensive line, they're going to go defense with that first pick. I think it's going to be more towards corner. Devin Weatherspoon is a name that keeps on reappearing. He solidified his status as a top 15 caliber guy overall at his pro day a couple days ago. He did run in the low 4.4s.
That's not
The one
bad.
question, that's the one
It's okay.
question with him is he gets very grabby downfield, and he's gotten beaten vertical multiple times by the NFL caliber receivers that he matched up against. So if Gonzalez is off the board, and I think he will be by then, I think it goes Weatherspoon before edge rusher.
And that's another local kid.
Yep.
So that could be interesting. Who do you believe it is? I don't think there's a consensus at all, though, who the number 2 edge rusher is there?
No, there's not a consensus. If there's a majority, I would say it's Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. My personal will be Miles Murphy from Clemson.
Yeah, I'd rather go that route myself than.
He's a more natural pass rusher. I think he plays with a hotter engine than Wilson. And Wilson, a lot of his production came inside shoulder of the tackle, which is not a bad thing. But I think he didn't match up against NFL caliber talent the way Miles Murphy did.